the Marner discussion is going to be extensive over the next 3 weeks in terms of, his what he wants, what he's looking for, what is reasonable. Like, we talk about the dollar amount a lot, and who knows what he wants, where he wants to go, whatever. I guess he's got to get to July 1st to find out exactly what's out there. But what do you believe is like a reasonable ceiling for the amount of money, like per year, that this guy can even ask for, that would allow the other teams to say, yeah, we're willing to have that discussion?
Yeah.
Like the highest paid player in the league, does he have that in mind? Does he really think he can get the highest cap hit in the NHL?
I don't know that he has that in mind. Do I think he's capable of that? Sure, I do. I think that there are teams that would step up and pay Mitch Marner north of $14 million. North of 14. I do. But I don't see, like, hey, look, you don't have to look too far down the road and watch what Yzerman and the Detroit Red Wings are trying to get done this offseason. I have a hard time envisioning Mitch Marner playing for the Red Wings and being that close to the Toronto Maple Leafs. But the Detroit Red Wings, the entire organization, the building, the city, the fan base, is absolutely starving for something like that, something really significant. Now, I'm not connecting those two. I'm just saying that I could see Detroit stepping up in that fashion. I had a team tell me earlier today that they think that Marner would consider taking a shorter term, depending on the fit, depending on the team. That doesn't mean he's taking less money on an annual average salary, and it depends which tax market we're talking about, despite what the commissioner says. But if all of a sudden now there's wiggle room in what that deal looks like from a term perspective, I think that increases the level of interest from a number of different teams.
You mean a big number on a Solani Korea type situation where he just goes short term somewhere and tries to win a cup? Is that what you...
Yeah.
But those were what, 1 year deals?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think you gotta go in that 3, 4, 5 year range. And I'm not saying that that's what Marner wants, but I think that there are teams out there that would prefer that and might spend a little more to convince him to do that. But you're never going to make up the money that you would, get in either that 8th year or even the 7th year as a true unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, that's the crazy part is depending on what he wants. Is there any chance, I mean, again, him going to unrestricted free agency, if he does want that 8th year, do you think they've got to have that conversation with the Toronto Maple Leafs and say, let's do a sign and trade if it's not going to be in Toronto?
Well, and honestly, I think that's part of what I was alluding to earlier, Noodles, is how interesting it's going to be for Brad Treliving. I mean, that has to be a consideration. Now, does it make sense for the Maple Leafs to move Marner's rights? You get a 4th or a 5th round draft pick, so the team can get to him earlier. And no, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I could understand, I guess, doing that. But what if there's an actual trade here and Marner is willing to negotiate, an extension, and he does get that 8th year if that's attractive to him with the team that he wants to play with, and you're helping that team by maybe getting a player or a couple of players that are actually going to help the Toronto Maple Leafs in the process as well. I think that absolutely everything from Toronto's perspective has to be considered.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for the Leafs.
Yeah.
And I would think for Marner. I mean, there have been reports that the relationship is frosty or whatever, different terms. I don't see how that makes any sense if we're dealing with business.
Right.
And what could possibly be? I get that they asked him to waive at some point.
Well, when a guy doesn't want to re-sign, why wouldn't anyone? That's what an organization
does. That's what I'm
does.
saying. Like, it's not. They didn't treat Mitch poorly, to my knowledge. I mean, maybe he has a different impression of this, but like, what could possibly lead either party to say we're not helping you? Like, and same thing from the Leafs.
No,
like, why would you be like,
agree.
I'm not helping you, Mitch? Like, why? Why would you not? Why would you do that? Why would you do a disservice to yourself? Because out of pettiness or whatever. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
No, I don't get that sense at all. And look, I'm sure that Brad Treliving tried to engage with the Marner camp a number of different ways and a number of times over the course of the season, certainly prior to the season, even though, they kept saying the focus has to be on hockey individually and as a group, and it was. And he had a terrific regular season. And I'm sure that there were at least discussions with Ferris and Treliving that maybe weren't specific to the development of a trade, but the possibility of a trade. But I do know that Marner more or less was blindsided by the Carolina scenario at the trade deadline, but not to a point, I don't think, where there's hard feelings or that would interfere with anything. I kind of remain status quo on this front. Unless there's a deal that makes sense to manage everything we've just talked about here, then he goes to July 1st. And he looks at everything in front of him from, the full freight of a multi-year term, 7 years, to a shorter term. And then he listens to whatever the interest the Toronto Maple Leafs would have, and he makes his decision as educated and informed as it would be at that point.
Yeah. Well, that's where I wonder where the Leafs would, if they feel like they're just wasting their own time. Like if you've been trying to engage with him on conversation, why do it? Why wait? Why even talk to him on July 1st? What's the point? If you've been trying to talk to him for 6 months and he's not going to do it, why would you even engage?
Yeah, that's not the way Brad Treliving works. I mean, he's involved in everything. So,
right, but at what point would you think this guy's just kind of are they using us to prop something? Like, that's what I'm saying.
I get it, Brian, but look, it's not like Brad Treliving and Darren Ferris aren't having conversations this week or next week. It's not broken phone. Those guys can. I'm not saying there's negotiating, and maybe it's one conversation. That's all you need, and you know that he's not signing in Toronto, regardless of what the deal looks like.